Welcome to Buckets. My name's Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer of the Action Network, joined by the NBA futures analyst, Brandon Anderson. I was going to look up like an entire list of conquerors. I got one from Matt Mitchell, the Genghis Khan of ROI. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you guys being with us. You can catch us all throughout the week here on Buckets. We've got shows twice a day, giving you best bets for the next day, as well as a pregame show. If you go to youtube.com/the Action Network, Monday through Friday, giving you best bets for that night's slate as we head into the second round of the conference semifinals of the NBA playoffs. A reminder that everything we talk about today can be found in the award-winning Action Network app. It's the best way for you to track your picks, and you get pro signals, and you get our prop projections, and you get, if you sign for Action Pro, you get Brandon Anderson's futures when he just puts them out, and you get Sean Kerner's props that he plays, and all sorts of great stuff before the market moves. If you want to be ahead of that, you got to sign up at actionnetwork.pro and use code POD20, and you're going to get $20 off of a annual subscription of Action Pro. Today, we will preview the Minnesota Timberwolves taking on the San Antonio Spurs. Victor Wembanyama in his second playoff series. The Wolves, whose heads have fallen off and are a mangled mess of bodies, trying to get through and trying to find a way to their third straight conference finals. Brandon, I've got like... You were so hardcore against the Rudy Gobert trade, and this era has worked out pretty well, bud.
Yeah, I mean, look, if they make a third consecutive conference final, it's going to be hard to have too many legs left to stand on. But we both know I'll be standing on both my legs on anyways. Obviously everything right now is great. And as much as any series that there is, the Timberwolves very clearly do not win the series to get to here without Rudy Gobert. Like, that's it. There's no argument to me otherwise. He was awesome. He had a near triple-double in the closeout win, like legacy Rudy Gobert game, as much as you can have for a guy that is one DPOY from the all-time record. Like, legacy is defined already. But yeah, for me, it always was about the long-term trajectory and championship upside. And I still never thought this team had championship upside, and it still doesn't this year now because of the injuries. And so to me, it's about success versus upside. And look, Minnesota has been a team for basically the same as much as you and I have been alive. And the team has never had the success it's had in these 3 years. So by measure of a small market team, a Pacers or that sort of small market team, to win multiple series, possibly 2 or 3 years in a row, is a ginormous success. And it doesn't all have to be about championship or bust. But Matt, there are other small markets like, say, San Antonio or Oklahoma City that win championships. And I want to win a championship as a Minnesota fan. And I didn't think this was a move to win a championship. And that's all. So that's water under the bridge. Here we are. It's Rudy Gobert. No Ant, no Dante, maybe no Io. I don't know who, what guards are we going to find? Bones Highland, I guess, is starring in the series for Minnesota here at guard. So it's a rough setup, and we will see how many different Minnesota Timberwolves shirts I can wear onto a podcast and then dump on them and pick against them in the series because, spoiler, I don't see this going super well for them.
Get ready to learn Jalen Clark, buddy. That's the lesson there.
Nikola Jokic sure did.
Jamal Murray learned Jalen Clark up close.
That's true.
And
great defender.
All right. So I want to go over the injuries before we do best bets. Dante DiVincenzo will not return. He suffered an Achilles tear. It sucks. I hate this for him. I'm really tired of these injuries. The NBA's got to reduce the schedule. They won't do it because of money. I'm really pissed off about it. The NBA is so infuriatingly recalcitrant in how they are reflecting on the current state of the league. And I've said this before on different pods, but I think it's like, this is the best way I can kind of explain it, is there's a scene in Zero Dark 30 where an advisor of the president is talking to a representative from the CIA as they're trying to the CIA is trying to convince them that bin Laden's in the house. And they can't prove it because there's tradecraft. Like, if he goes for a walk, he's under a grape arbor covered by leaves. There's a privacy wall that's 15 feet high. Like, he does not leave the one male does not leave the compound all of these types of things, but they can't get a picture. They can't get a visual confirmation of it. There's no audio, there's no visual, there's nothing. There's no way for them to be able to get confirmation of it. And he's trying to argue about like how much you can rule out every other counter example of it. And the White House representative is talking about Obama, and he says the president is a thoughtful, analytical guy. He needs evidence. And that's where the league, I'm on a tangent here, but I think it's important. That's Adam Silver. He's like, you have to be able to show me data that says that these injuries are worse than in previous seasons. They feel worse to us, but the league's data so far is basically suggesting, well, no, like there's always been kind of injuries. The problem is just like, if we look at the soft tissue problem, it's entirely different. I think we've had breaks. I think we've had a lot more knee stuff. I think we've had a lot of more knee stuff because the ACL tears used to be like devastatingly common, and they were permanent. Like there was microfracture surgery and you never recovered. R.I.P. Amari Stoudemire. But we're just like, we're seeing this. You can't tell me that we're seeing this frequency.
Yeah.
Like Jason Tatum had to miss game 7 yesterday because he had calf tightness because he couldn't risk tearing the Achilles again. Like their unwillingness to engage on the idea that there's a problem that needs to be addressed. And even if they're just like, look, financially, we cannot reduce the games. We can't. It's too much money, which I will always just kind of be like, oh, I'm sorry. Are you only going to make 13 billion instead of 12 or instead of 15? But like, fine. I can't control capitalism. At least stretch the schedule out. We need to start October 1st and go through April 30th regular season. Stretch it out 2 weeks in the beginning, 2 weeks at the end. That gives you a month extra to play with in terms of alleviating back-to-backs, travel, and stress on the bodies. That's like the bare minimum that we can start with. I'm so sick of this. Dante DiVincenzo's out. That sucks. Anthony Edwards suffered a knee bruise. Brandon, it sounds like you don't expect him to play at all.
We'll get into it. I don't ever have any insights to insider knowledge or anything. I got nothing. Right. I have no sources. If I have any source, it's you, Matt, and it's secondary through whatever you've told me. So I have nothing other than I think there's a good chance the Spurs win the first 2 games. I think there's a solid chance they win the 3rd game without Ant still. And if Ant's not back and it's 0-3, then I don't think he's coming back. So because I think it leans short series without him, because I think the Wolves are maybe drawing dead without him, then there's just, we're only, the games are every other day now. The long first round series has made it so we're grinding the rest of the way now. There's by the end of the week, it's like game 4 on Sunday or something, I think here. Yeah, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday game 4. So if Ant is not ready by the weekend, by a few days from now, I just don't know how we get there. And that's what I thought about Austin Reeves last round, because it looked like the Rockets would win early in the series and put things away. And the Lakers won the first 2 games and extended, and then Austin Reeves got to come back by the end. So if the Timberwolves can extend the series, then I think the calculus changes on it. But that's my read. He's the franchise. And he was already playing hurt with the runner's knee. I don't know what running means, so I can't help you with that one. But he was already hurt and then hurt the other knee. And so I have to be skeptical here. And Jessica Chastain was awesome in 0 Dark 30.
She really was incredible. Really great cast all throughout that one. Kyle Chandler's in it. That's a sneaky good one. He's really good.
Clear eyes, full hearts.
Yeah, I really like that movie.
What's your read on the Ayo Dosunmu injury? Do you expect him at all?
I think he'll be back. That hasn't been a repetitive thing. I think they had to be careful with it at the end of the series, but I expect with the extra 5 days off, it's probably enough for him to play.
Game 1?
Let me check the injury report, Brandon. Let me see what the injury report says for game 1, and I'll tell you how I feel about it.
As you're looking this up, let me go ahead and give you my 10-word series outlook, because it ties to all of this. Wolves offense without guards, drawing dead versus elite Spurs defense. That's how I feel about the series because of these injuries specifically.
No injury report yet. That'll come out today about 5 p.m. Eastern. Mine is, I think I'll take a shot on the Minnesota Timberwolves.
All right. I like it.
So why don't you start and give me your kind of series overview here?
Well, let me give the best bet first. Yeah.
That's the way to do it. Yeah.
Okay.
Do the best bet.
So best bet, I'm going to give you two here because one is shockingly, I'm sure, a bit convoluted, and it's my attempt to give you a series bet. The other is my more real best bet. So my series bet is Spurs in 5, losing either game 2 or game 3. So I'll explain what that is later. It's going to come out to about a 4-1 bet.
I'm gonna hang on. I'm gonna get a note. I'm gonna get a notepad so I can try and understand.
You're going to need that. It's just two exact outcome bets. It's just exact outcome. Spurs, Wolves, Spurs, or the other way. That's all that is. So it's betting both of those. My real best bet is De'Aaron Fox, assist leader on the series, plus 270 at DraftKings. What are your best bets?
My best bets are going to be Spurs game 1, Wolves series is going to be now. These bets always make me nauseous. Because it's like your best bet could just be dead.
You're just gone after one game. Yeah. But it's all right, Matt, because you and I are going to talk like 1,000 hours this week, and there are going to be more chances to bet things. And look, I'll say that too. This is our first second round series preview. I'm going to feel that way in a bunch of these. Like the Spurs and the Thunder, you can bet Spurs minus 2.5. So Spurs in 5 or less, Thunder in 5 or less. You can parlay those together, and it's still like minus 130. The books are just like, we don't want any of that. We know the Western Conference Finals. We're out. Don't bother. But that doesn't mean we can't bet it. It just might mean not right now, or not in a certain way now. And I'll even say this. I have in my notes further down the page, I might have to play a nibble on the Timberwolves in a game or two. So I'm kind of thinking along the lines you are, Matt, where I expect the Spurs to win game 1. I expect them to win game 2 also. But I actually think that this is priced pretty heavy on the side of the Spurs. Not enough for me to want to bet Minnesota because I think the Spurs can win the first game or two. But at some point, given the possibility of Ant, given a little bit of my disbelief in the Spurs, and that I think the price is just so far off, I probably am going to have to at least nibble on Minnesota. So I like your best bet. I think it's the right setup.
Yeah, and like I think like one of the things here too, I think is that so my kind of configuration around this is built off of the idea that they're going to get Ant back. I talked to the Minnesota guys when they were in Denver after Ant, and they were like, I don't know when he's going to be back, but I expect him back. So it might be game 2, it might be game 5, and they may not. You're like, you could be totally right that they're not going to get there. I don't have anybody inside the Wolves organization that's like, Ant's going to be back in game. Like, that's not how this works. Okay. One of the things I think that's really important to kind of keep in mind. If guys are out way ahead of time, that's what they know, that guys are going to be out, and they don't say anything. They're like, yeah, he's questionable. He's going to go, he's going to go through his warm up and see, like, I was texting you about this last night that, David Adelman's like, look, AG is going to go through his warm up. He's going to go through the process. We'll evaluate him and we'll see if he can go. And then after the game, Nikola Jokic was like, oh yeah, I knew like 3 or 4 days ago that AG wasn't going to play. And you're just like, cool. Thanks for wasting all of our time. Because they do all this gamesman crap. I will add though that I think it's fine to take the plus 950, plus 1,000, wherever, if you can get it on whatever the best price is on Wolf series, right? Like my best bet.
That's series, or that's game 1 series.
That is Wolves series. Best price on game 1 on Spurs game 1 Wolves series is 1,800 at DK. Okay, which is that's I am trying the Brandon Anderson of like this is a really juicy number. So like if we're gonna go this way, let's go this way. Yeah, right. I don't expect them back for game 1. They're most likely to be without Io in game 1, and so there's a scenario I see where the Wolves steal game 1. But like, okay, they are less likely to win game 1. Okay. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get ahead of this idea because they're their lowest price. Because also if game 1 is close and then the Wolves guys come back, you're not going to get a better price after game 1 relative to what you were. Well, you'll still probably get a better price because of the guaranteed result, but still, that's kind of the idea.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're actually on a pretty similar idea. We both think the same about game 1. We both think Minnesota might be alive to do some stuff after that. I just am going to bet on the Spurs closing out. You're going to bet on the Wolves closing out, and not even saying like you think the Wolves are going to win. No, you think the Wolves are going to win 18-1. Like that's what the prediction is here. So Yeah, I think it's a similar angle. I will say too, as far again, not a doctor, to me, the Ant knee injury is a lot different than a Tatum calf injury. Knee injury is pain management. Knee injury is not, well, if I play, I might shred my knee and now I'm out a year or two. Like that, this is a different muscle injuries and joint injuries are different. And so pain management versus risk of further injuries derailing your career is significantly different. And we need to analyze that differently. So I do think that plays into the favor of Ant playing at some point. Let me ask you this. I'm not saying would you if you were in charge of the decision, just our best guess as analysts. Spurs go up 2-0 at home, and Ant is similar to what we know right now. We don't know any better. We're not the doctors. They're up 2-0. Spurs up 2-0. It's back to Minnesota. Do you think, let's say that the doctors are 50-50 on whether they should allow him to play. If it's 0-2 into Minnesota, do you think Ant plays or doesn't play?
He plays.
Okay, how about if it is, okay, now it's 3-1. Ant hasn't played yet. It's 3-1, back to the Spurs for game 5. Does Ant play or doesn't play?
No.
Yeah, and I think I agree with both of those. And I think those are the spots. For me, I think it's 3-1. And if he hasn't played yet, that's why I'm at Spurs in 5. So I think he has to go early. I think they need him game 2 or 3. Otherwise, I'm worried we just don't get Ant after that.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, and I also will say this. So what I did on the model is I actually gave them, I've got Ant worth about 3 points to the spread. So I gave them a bump of Wolves +3 in games 3 through 7.
Sure.
So we start off with them being these massive favorites, and then we kind of move back and I adjust it down. So it's like they're a 10. I've got them at like minus 10.5 in game 1, and then we move back here. Now the problem is I do all of that, and I come out to a number of the San Antonio Spurs win the series 89% of the time. They are 89% at Cal State. They like I am on the dot after I give them all this credit for Ant coming back, and I'm just like, oh god, oh god. Well, it's probably that my model is actually not overestimating. My model is stronger on San Antonio even than the models for the books. That's the real indicator here is like if we do this, if this is assuming that Ant's not going to play, because I think that's probably a little bit baked in. I don't know where that's baked into the numbers, but I do think that's kind of interesting. Yeah. Okay, I want to do this. I think is like an interesting. There's a bunch of ways that we can go here based off of our usual format structure. Do you want to start offense, defense, or do you want to go in another direction and talk about best overall players? What do you want to do?
I can go either way. I'm ready to do both. So lead where you want, and I'll follow.
All right, let's talk about Spurs offense versus Wolves defense, because I think that's really interesting. And by the way, I do want to state up front what your real best bet is, because you kind of said it, but I want to get to this and we'll come back to it and explain it at the end. Brandon's real best bet for the series is De'Aaron Fox, assist leader, +270 at DraftKings. Yeah. So,
okay, let me go first on Spurs offense, because I actually don't have a lot to say here, and I'm curious because it sounds like you have more to say. I think Spurs offense, Wolves defense is a pretty fair fight, to be honest. I think it's a relatively even fight by the numbers, just like quick numbers for you from the regular season. Number 4 offense, number 8 defense, number 7 EFG versus number 5 EFG. The Wolves EFG defense is actually better, which is important. We know how much that matters. It's a top 5 2% offense against a top 5 2% defense. That is what Minnesota's defense has been built around with Rudy Gobert. Minnesota does foul a lot. Spurs don't draw a ton of fouls. Maybe they can get a little bit of advantage there. I think the Spurs maybe have a slight advantage on free throws, a slight advantage on offensive rebound or turnovers, but like not enough that I'd really make too much of it, or not enough that I'm confident that's a real thing. I also think with the injury factors, there's a chance actually, given who Minnesota has to play. You mentioned Jalen Clark. I think the Wolves' injuries might actually make the defense even better. I think it's going to make them lock in even more on defense. They have to win this side, and they have to like win this side of the ball for this to even have a shot in the series. If Minnesota wins any games, it has to be this. It has to be because Minnesota's defense beats the Spurs offense enough to pull the game down into the mud and give their offense a chance. I think Minnesota has a fair fight on this side of the ball.
What is the biggest reason that you think it is makes it like a fair fight here? Like, what's the biggest reason you think?
I think probably that I remain a little bit skeptical about the Spurs having a championship offense.
Yeah.
I think the Spurs have a good or probably very good offense, but not a great one. But look, I had those same concerns about the Thunder last year, and they're the champions. So it might be enough because the defense being that good with a really good offense is maybe enough. But I think this is a really good, not elite offense against a really good, not elite, but trending towards elite defense.
So, some promising stuff for San Antonio, and one reason I might be on the overs in this series. They scored 1.05 points per possession with Rudy Gobert on the court this season in pick and roll. That's a very niche stat. What it effectively says is what's the biggest advantage for the Wolves having Rudy Gobert? Okay, well the Spurs were still able to score pretty consistently getting downhill. It's an interesting one of the things I've had a really hard time with. The Spurs, as the season evolved, went from a team where I felt like I had a good sense of them, which is kind of what you're talking about, which is, hey, a lot of athleticism. Wembanyama's amazing. The guards are really fast and able to get downhill, but not like a great shooting team. And then as the season went on, they just kept ticking up and up and up and got better and found ways into their mechanisms more and more. And I think a lot of that is the development of Stephon Castle and him being able to make reads better to find shooters like Julian Champagnie and those guys to be able to find the right shooters in those situations. I think that's like a big part of why they got better. But I will say they actually didn't shoot well versus versus the Wolves, and a lot of that probably is because of Gobert. So think about how Minnesota defended Denver, right? They took the 2-man game and they said, "We're not helping. We're not. We're staying home. You're gonna have to beat us 2-on-2. We got Jaden McDaniels, Jalen Clark, if we have to. Anthony Edwards when he played. I would assume knew when he played. And we got Rudy Gobert. We're playing 2-on-2. That's what we're doing. We're gonna make you beat us 2-on-2. Now, an interesting question with this is, do you trust Victor Wembanyama's 3-point shot? That I think is like a really interesting kind of component here. Because like Victor is way more likely.
Favorite Victor Wembanyama for threes, 3-point shot.
3-point series leader, by the way, at 35%. We'll come back to that here a little bit later. Victor, I think, is very boomer bust with his jumper. There are games where where it's clean and you're just like, he hits another one, 6 of 7 for Victor Wembanyama. And then there's games where it's like, Wembanyama, no. And they don't say anything, but then you look and you're like, God, he's 1 of 7 from 3-point range. Not great. So in general, I think that this is like I think that there are edges here for San Antonio. I'm really curious about whether or not San Antonio can keep up with how intense the ball pressure is. Like they just played Portland, who's so good defensively on ball pressure. So that's promising. And they played the Blazers, who have really good interior defense with Donovan Clingan. Okay, that's really good. And they have athletes. Okay, that's really good. So there's a lot I think that San Antonio can take through here. I think that if I'm looking at the edges here, I don't necessarily know that I'm like, oh, this favors Minnesota heavily. I think it's more of, man, if Victor doesn't have another incredible series, if Rudy is able to bother him in some sense, this could help them kind of considerably. The other guy to keep an eye on, I think, is Stephon Castle, who in the first round, if you kind of go back and look at his deep dive numbers, I don't know that that's like a great,
not great,
not great, and
not
so
terrible. He's young. There's plenty of time. But as someone that watched Castle a lot in college, saw bits and pieces of his development over the years, and this is the first time where I'm like, I'm watching all Stephon Castle for 2 weeks. I was like, I thought I heard this was like the breakout star, and this is not against Portland a breakout star. And look, my feelings were hurt because I bet Stephon Castle 17 different ways on assists, and he didn't do anything for me. So that was probably part of it. But let me ask you about that, because I had in my notes thinking about matchups. And look, the matchups in the NBA is kind of a fake concept now because switching and everything. It's not just a one-on-one matchup. I think there's a chance Gobert ends up defending Stephon Castle and not Wemby for chunks of the series, because we've seen teams stash guys on Castle because he can't shoot and doesn't space the offense. and that lets kind of Rudy roam a little bit and not have to roam out to the 3 to defend Wembanyama, which I think is important. So I'm curious if you think that could be in play and how Castle would handle that. And I'm curious also about just fascinating wrinkle that Rudy Gobert and Wembanyama are very familiar with each other. They're on the French national team together. And does that, what does that familiarity do for Victor in this series when he's played a lot of practicing against this dude before?
I think that there's probably an element. The familiarity, I think, helps because you're not shocked by the size of Gobert, and Gobert's not shocked by the size of Victor. I just don't know if it's going to be the same kind of dynamics because of how the NBA is played. There are different levels.
Very different, especially for big men.
Yeah, it's very different. One thing I think will be interesting to see is like how the rebounding battle goes here, right? Does Rudy continue to just like, my instinct is that my lone criticism of Victor, and it's not even like a criticism, it's just he hasn't filled out yet. He still has a kid body. And over the next 5 years, he's going to grow into a man body. And then we're all dead. Everything is dead. And we will be on this podcast being like, Spurs minus 4.5 on the series spread. Like, I don't know what you do with this kid when he finds his core strength. I don't know what you do. And he's got a high center of gravity, which will always going to be a problem. But good God. So that's one of the kind of key things here is you can't go into the series being like, I don't trust Victor Wembanyama, because you're just like, at any point he could evolve like a Pokemon into the next iteration and destroy everything. I just am kind of at the point of I'm not willing to like give the matchup outright to Victor like I am with so many. I do think that Rudy's probably going to do a pretty good job on him. But look, a big part of this, the threes is going to be a huge swing factor here, because if we look back, Nikola Jokic could not hit water if he fell out of a boat from 3 in that series. And if Victor can just hit water if he falls, even if he's not that efficient, that's a huge swing in their favor because Wolves offense is up against it as well. You want to talk about Wolves offense versus Spurs defense?
Yeah, so this is the reason why I'm so heavy on the Spurs in this series. Because I think this would have been a mismatch if the Wolves were healthy. I think it would have still tilted the series toward the Spurs' favor. I think it's a disaster with all the injuries. I just think San Antonio is going to match pretty much anything that the Wolves want to do. So looking not at matchup stuff, but more at the 4-factor stuff. Good 2-point percentage team. That's what Minnesota does well. Great 2-point percentage team. Obviously a Wemby. Like, that's all the stats on the Spurs are going to be great. Minnesota is a top 10 3-point shooting team. Well, the Spurs are a top 10 3-point defending team. And the Wolves aren't a top 10 3-point shooting team anymore because Ant and Dante aren't out there. That's their 3-point shooting guys. The spacing is gone. And I forget if it was John Krasinski or one of the Wolves guys noted Minnesota this run while they keep winning series, 5-0 in series against a team without a real rim protector, 0-2 against teams in the series that had a real rim protector. Well, guess what? I'm going to count Wembanyama as a real rim protector. So not great. And by the way, that's kind of an Ant stat anyway. Ant can just attack the bucket at will. And if there's a rim protector, that changes things. Well, there's not Ant right now anyhow. I think the Spurs too are not going to allow anything free. It's going to be all a grind. They're the number 1 defensive rebounding team, so no second chance points. They are top 4 in fast break points allowed and points off turnovers allowed. They don't allow that stuff. They're number 1 in fewest fouls in the league. And Minnesota just doesn't right now have its foul drawer anyways. So I just think there's nothing easy going to come from Minnesota. Everything is going to be a grind. And even healthy, I thought Minnesota's offense was good and not great, mostly dependent on shot making. And their shot makers are not there on the team to play right now. So even healthy, Wolves offense would have been the weak spot in the series. Without the guards, until Ant can play again, and look, Io will help, but Io is not going to change the series. Ant has to be it. I think the offense is drawing dead. Without Ant, without Dante, and maybe Io, I would be looking at Minnesota team total unders. You mentioned this being an over series. I won't play this in game 1 because I need to kind of see how things look. I don't have a great model on totals, but I will be watching Minnesota team total under, especially if there's a game that I think the Wolves are going to lose. I think there could be ugly games where the Wolves just cannot score points in this series.
So one thing on the turnover side, I think is really interesting here, because that's been a huge bugaboo for for Minnesota, and the Spurs don't force a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that's real. I think that's a really crucial one. The San Antonio is so built as a shell defense. And I think that the Wolves are much more comfortable attacking those types of defenses than they are more like OKC's, right?
Yeah.
Who's comfortable attacking OKC, but like Detroit, those type of teams. Now, Minnesota did well versus both San Antonio and OKC relative to their competitors this season. Like they've been very good. Like that's one of the reasons is like, hey, they took games off of the Spurs. Hey, they took games off of the Thunder. It was one of the reasons why we always kind of kept an eye on the Wolves and being like, is this like, what if like they're like the team that's going to make the run? I also think this kind of leads into another thing. We're doing like the logical tactical matchup here, and there is like a part of me that's just kind of like, yeah, but we're seeing like a lot of illogical stuff in these playoffs. Like, there's a lot of stuff that is just like, hey, the Sixers just beat the Celtics. They just beat them. Like they beat it. Were they better? Were the Sixers better than them? Probably not. Like over the long big picture, were they better in that series? Absolutely. Yep, they were better. And so that's kind of like me, but all I think you can do is kind of approach it from a logical perspective. You can't try and do a handicap based off of I'm going against logic. I don't know that like what that looks like. So the spot up numbers I think are really important here. They're going to need to hit threes. This is going to have to be the Wolves actually do have quite a bit of spacing. They do have even without Dante, they have quite a bit of spacing. Ant helps, obviously, right? They need the Ant back by the end of the series. As an example, Ant had 17 points on spot ups in the regular season series across the games. I realize that doesn't sound like a lot. It's huge when you disperse that across the series matchups. That's a lot of points for them to be able to generate. Mike Conley actually had 18 because he was forced to play in a lot of these games. Julius Randle was able to space them out. Randle is maybe like the most interesting one here. The Spurs don't have a great matchup here for Julius. And if now what you might say is like they don't need one because Victor will just protect the rim. Right? Like that's the idea is you don't need to worry about Gobert spacing you. So they're just going to run drop and Victor will protect the rim and that's it. But I do think especially if they go to the 3 big or if they run the 5 out Nas Julius, those are lineups I think they can score on San Antonio.
It's fair.
So much of San Antonio's, I think, defensive shell is built around Victor in terms of let's lead guards to help. Like, let's make you be like, hey, you can get past first drive. We're not going to give you the 3. You're going to have to drive, and then you're going to have to score on Victor. But if you're driving and then you're kicking, and you've got bigs who Victor has to leave to do this rim protection, now you're in I think a little bit of a better position. I don't think that De'Aaron is as good defensively as he was, say, 2 to 3 years ago. De'Aaron has not been as good defensively. The metrics kind of bear that out, that he's not as good. I think Stephon Castle is like, he's still, like you mentioned, he's still young. Dylan Harper, still young. Julian Champagnie, not a great. So it's like, if you go through all of the Spurs guys, I don't know who's like a lockdown point of attack defender to be like, I'm not going to let you get past me. So much of, again, this is where I actually criticize Nikola Jokic a lot, is the best defenses in the NBA are largely like you just drive them to help. You don't lock them down. You don't try and stop guys at the perimeter by just being like, you can't get past me, even if we set a screen. There's like, I don't know, 15 guys in the league I trust with that, right? They're going to get downhill. And if you're able to space effectively, you can score. I am always of you should play Rudy Gobert more. You win his minutes. Keep trusting that. This is the one series where I'm kind of like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe you want to just go 5 out and try and like hit threes with Julius Randle and Naz Reid and not try and challenge Victor at the rim because he'll just disrupt the lob. Like usually you've got like, well, if I just throw it up to Rudy. And this one I'm kind of like, no, like Rudy will just get blocked. Like he'll just snatch the lob out of the air. No, you can't even like, oh, Rudy's just going to get the offensive rebound. No, Victor will just block him on the offensive rebound attempt because he's insane. So like taking away that much of the court, I do think is a huge battle here. But there are ways I can kind of look at this and go, all right, there's a chance here for them to be able to generate scores. I actually really like the bench lineups versus the Spurs Luke Cornett lineups. That makes a lot because the Spurs bench units are so traditional and that they're like, we are a shell drop coverage team. And the 5-out Wolves are built to counter that. So I think that could be the mixed lineups, I think could be an advantage. Again, they're going to need Ant back to pull this off. If Ant doesn't play, my bets are dead. I think I do not see them pull like, sure, they could pull off a miracle. They won they won 2 of 3 without Ant versus Denver, but like, they're going to need Ant back. If that's not true, it's just you just need the random scoring that Ant provides. But I do think that there are mechanisms here, I think, for San Antonio that are a little bit better. I get that you're absolutely right from a metric standpoint. It's just like that Spurs, that Spurs, that Spurs, that Spurs. I think from a mechanism matchup standpoint, I can make a better argument for why Minnesota could hang.
When you say bench lineups, I'm hearing that as Naz Reid lineups. Is that what you're meaning?
Naz Reid, Julius, no Rudy.
Yeah, right.
Right.
So like, yeah, I agree with that. Actually, I'll just say this part now. Naz is 12-1 to be the series leader in threes. I'm gonna nibble that. I think that's a good bet. I think there'll be a better price later. Threes market is
killed my other best bet.
Well, I'll give it back to you, but I probably will play only like a quarter unit and bet more hopefully after game one, because if I like Spurs a lot in game one, threes market is always one shifting all over the place. Someone randomly has 4 threes and the market way over adjusts for it. So I think there'll be a better price on it later. But I do think he had 3 threes in a couple of the games against the Spurs this year. So I think that's important. Here's my concern with big picture still. I don't really think that counts as the bench lineups here, because I think Naz, with all the injuries, pretty much has to play starter minutes. And like the actual bench minutes is Jalen Clark and Kyle Anderson. And like the actual bench guys is like, I think Naz Reid is effectively the starting small forward in this series, unless maybe apparently we're calling him TJ Shannon now, unless maybe he actually like gets to playoff series. But I think Naz officially is a bench player, but kind of in the way that the traditional 6-man award goes, where like, yeah, you're a starter, you're a closer, you're just not actually in the lineup. So let me ask this on hierarchy. Obviously, Victor Wembanyama is the best player in the series by lots of tiers. Who's second best in the series to you? Give me your next like 3-4 players after Victor.
All right, I think it's with Ant out.
Yeah, assuming Ant out. Ant's obviously second otherwise.
All right, so it's Victor, Rudy, Fox, Jaden, Castle, Naz.
You didn't give me Randall. I'm assuming he's in that mix somewhere.
He is in that mix, I think, with he's probably behind Castle. Probably right.
Okay. So mine that I have written down, I have Wemby, huge gap. I have Fox alone in a tier, and then a gap, and then Randall, Rudy, Jaden, Castle. And I could argue about the order of those 4. But if I'm right that Fox is alone in a tier as the second best player and Wemby is way by far the best player, that's a wrap. Like that's it on the series. To me, a big takeaway out of the first round for the Spurs, while I was low on Castle, and part of our hierarchy here too, you have Rudy second, but you just told me a few minutes ago that you think that they should play him less in the series because it's not going to work that great while he's out there because the lob threat goes away. So Castle being potentially a problem here moves him down the list, but Fox was really good. And look, a few years ago, Fox won the award that I hate and don't pay any attention to whatsoever, the Clutch Award, because I think it's just random noise, except maybe not, because Fox looked like the Clutch Award winner in round 1, 3 games in a row to close out the Blazers. Fourth quarter came, Fox had done kind of whatever, and then suddenly just hit like 5 buckets in a row to close things out. And that's the guy that he's supposed to be. That's what he's getting paid a lot to be for them. And I sort of felt coming to the playoffs like the baton had passed already, and Castle had already become that guy. And that's why I bet a lot on Castle assists in round 1. I did not see that in round 1. I thought the offense runs through Fox, the half-court offense, the slower-paced playoff offense runs through Fox. I think that Castle is the guy who had big boost in his potential assist numbers that I saw at the end of the season. I think probably that was March basketball numbers. I think that was, we're playing a lot of bad teams and getting a lot of runouts and a lot of transitions, a lot of easy stuff numbers. And that's where Steph Castle is awesome, is running in transition. Obviously, Fox can run as well too, but I'm going to go into the Fox assist leader bet here because this is that angle. I think this is an outdated price based on those regular season numbers. This is a full U-turn for me because I think actually Castle assist was one of my worst round one reads. This is a Fox offense. And I think given the Gobert possible stash on Castle helps as well. Round one, it wasn't a wide margin, but Fox did out assist Castle 6.8 to 6.0. It was also about 11 to 9 potential assists per game in Fox's favor. That's not huge, but he should be favored here. He had more assists in the regular season. He is instead the underdog here. I think they got the prices backward. Castle had either 7 or 8 potential assists, all but one game last series. The one game was game 4. He had 15. That checks out. That's the game when it was 73-35 in the second half, when it was the landslide of turnovers and runouts, and that's when Castle gets his assists and his potential. So Fox, on the other hand, had double-digit potentials all but one game, and that was the no Wemby game. So that's the data point, easier to throw out. Hopefully he stays healthy here. It's not going to be Minnesota assist leader. There's nobody left unless Mike plays 40 minutes, and good on him. Mike, you can have my money. You can win the assist leaderboard if you do it. I would make Fox the leader over Castle, plus 270 at DraftKings. It's my favorite bet on this series. If you can't bet that for some reason or something in the 200s, I do see the old every game bet. Every game, 6 assists or more is 7-1 at the score. I'm going to be honest. I don't love that. I think that that's about priced accurately, but it's fun. I'll put a little nibble on it. Every game bet in a series, I think, goes short, makes me look for possible edges there. So Fox assists, I think that's an angle I'll be on from the beginning here.
Yeah, my only concern is if the big question here is, are the Wolves going to be able to maintain their defensive shell coverage with drop, right? So if you make it into a 2-man game with Fox and Wemby, and they're able to defend that, it becomes a leverage point on, can Fox generate enough assists to Victor Wembanyama if the Wolves were able to stay home, right? Because I think that they were able to, the Blazers sent a lot of help. Blazers were trying to force turnovers, so they were sending a lot of help. If the Wolves are just going to stay home on shooters, it's about defensive discipline. Like, are you going to allow Julian Champagnie corner threes? Are you going to allow them to get to Harrison Barnes spot ups?
Yeah.
That'll be a big mechanism here. But the counter to this is, if Rudy has to stay high and Fox is able to beat whoever they're going to defend him with, like, we'll see. Like, maybe they will do a better job of getting Jaden McDaniels off of Fox than the Nuggets did of getting Jaden McDaniels off of Jamal Murray, right? And so if Fox is able to just get downhill, or if he just beats Jaden, if it's just like, hey, I'm just faster than you, and gets to the layups, that will in turn, like, that hurts you in the short term, but that will force help. And when you force help, now Fox is going to be able to generate those assists. Transition stuff will be interesting too. With the short-handed roster, you would expect the Spurs to run, and you could just pick up random assists that way, where Fox is just like finding little bits and pieces because the Wolves have to run a shorter rotation because they are missing multiple guys. And as a result, they get into better position here. I'm not going to argue against this bet, because why would I argue against one of your prop bets? They've been gold. But those are the kind of things to look out for as the series goes along. Is keep an eye on, are the Wolves able to just sit back and be like, we're doing the same thing we did versus Denver. Victor Wembanyama beats us from 3. Victor Wembanyama beats us from 3, but you're not going to beat us with spot up threes. When they took away everybody else and made it 2-on-2, that was how Minnesota was able to turn that series. And doing it against the best 2-man game in the league was pretty impressive.
It was. Yeah, and to be clear, this is not even really me saying, like, I love Fox assist, playing Fox assist escalators all series. I'm not doing that. I may later. This to me is a bet against Castle assist line. I think Castle is priced too high. More like, to me, Fox becomes the Simpsons, the 2 greatest words in the English language, default. Fox is the default winner here, because I don't think Minnesota has an answer for this, and I think Castle is priced too high. To me, what I saw in the first round is Fox just having a lot of the ball. As the guy that wanted Castle assist chances, I was like, what? He's standing in the corner. Fox has the ball the entire possession again, or Wemby has the ball. I can't get mad about that, but those are the guys with the ball. And if you have the ball that much, you're going to get some assists. Eventually, you're going to pass the ball to Wemby, and the giant alien is going to score you some points. So it's a default bet on that. I'm fading Castle. Look, you actually just gave a point against Fox that I actually is my biggest point against my own bet that made me a little queasy, which is Fox could get some of the transition stuff, second unit. Well, Castle's the guy I just said gets the transition stuff, and he might be the one leading the second unit offense. So maybe I don't like that. Maybe that's where the bet goes wrong, is if Castle does get some of those. But yeah, that's where I'm at on that. Let me explain the series best bet, since I know it's a bit convoluted. So I think we kind of said it. I can't get there on like the sweep odds. It's plus 150. That's a ridiculous price for a sweep. I don't need Spurs minus 1.5, Spurs 6 or less. That's minus 600. I'm not giving you a minus 600 bet. We talked about if Ant was playing in the series, if Ant and Dante were playing, it was a healthy series, I would probably go Spurs 5 or 6. And I would probably be looking for like Wolves plus 2.5 here or something. Without those guys, I just think any win is tough. So what I expect is a sweep, if I'm being totally honest. But I'm not going to bet it because plus 150 is crazy. I do expect the Spurs to win game 1. And then maybe they go up 2-0 at home, lose game 3 on the road. We know the game 3 0-2 spot. Ant may be back in that spot. That's the obvious spot. So there's your exact outcome. Spurs, lose 1, game 3. Spurs win game 4 and out. That one is plus 650 at BetMGM. But I also think there could be that experience spot where it's like, okay, like the Wolves are not a normal team. The Wolves love to win when you count them out, because, Matt, I count the Wolves out a lot and then they win and I look stupid. It happens to me a lot on this team specifically, my team, quote unquote, specifically. So I think they could, after like the Spurs win game 1 by 40 and everyone's like, well, that series is over, and the Wolves are counted out and the Spurs get high on their own stuff. And the Wolves come out in game 2 and play intensity and pressure and defense and keep it close and steal one at the end. And everyone's like, whoa, that series is back on. And then the Spurs just win game 3 and kind of close back out again. So that's the other one. Spurs game 1, Wolves game 2, Spurs after that. That one is 14-1 at DraftKings. It just so happens if you put those two together, split your bet in half, you basically get a combined plus 400. So Spurs win game 1, Minnesota steals one of the next 2, exactly one of the 2, and then the Spurs win a road game 4, close out in game 5. That's the bet on the series. That's the convoluted angle.
I just am so impressed at you for always finding a way to get to a plus number, just every single time. By the way, for an example of this, you had Magic in 6 at 80-1 was where you were at. And
the exact series outcome, Magic game 1, and then Magic win the 3 home games.
And then, so it's like, oh, but that lost. Yeah, but it gave him a chance to take a live position on Detroit when Magic were up big at half at 11-1. Is that where you got it?
11-1, put 3/4 of a unit on it, but I only put 1/10 of a unit on the 80-1 because you shouldn't bet much on 80-1s. Those are crazy. And so that would have won 8 units. The 3/4 of a unit was a hedge price. I thought it was a wasted price. I didn't think that Detroit was going to win that series. They were down 22 at the half. They couldn't make anything, but it was possible, and they did. And look, now, like, Matt, I would have been sweating bullets for an hour of the Magic brick, every stupid shot. And instead, I put the hedge in and I'm out. And I'm like, all right, well, I hope I don't look stupid. I hope the Magic don't win by 50 now. And I just gave away 3/4 of a unit. But instead, that won 9 units out of it. So some of these bets at long odds don't have to actually hit to be profitable for you. They can set you up to be profitable later. A different nibble that I will take in the series, just a nibble. I think Fox is going to score pretty well in the series. I'm going to nibble him 30-1 at the score to be the scoring leader in the series. Again, assuming no Ant, so probably not in play there. We might need a Wemby to like miss a half or something for this game for this to be in play. And again, I think Wemby could score a bunch in game 1. You get a better price on this later. I think Fox scores pretty well. He scored pretty well in the series. He's the guy taking the shots late in the game. And I think we could get some close-ish games in the series, even though I like the Spurs. You like Nas threes. I gave that earlier, but I'm giving this one to you. It's 12-1 at most books. What's your case for Nas threes leader?
Okay. Nas Reed plus 1,200 over a DK for threes. So Spurs were second in corner 3-pointers given up this season. That's a big deal here. The Wolves generate a ton of corner threes. They're one of the higher teams. The leader in that category for them in terms of attempts this season was Dante DiVincenzo. But Dante actually didn't shoot great from the corner specifically, which is not to say he's not a great shooter. He obviously is. Number 2 was Nas. Nas spaces the corner quite a bit. And I had played that early in the series versus Denver and then got away from it because Nas's shoulder was jacked. But Nas's shoulder's feeling better. Chris Finch kind of talked about it, about how like the time in between the series, they had 2 games that were separated by 2 days off. That really helped, I think, Nas get back to where his shoulder was feeling better. And he started to hit threes as the series went on. So similar to how he was able to kind of kill the Nuggets again, I think he's going to be a big factor in this series as well. Spotting up in the corner, getting action out of the 3 big and 2 big lineups, and then being able to find options for him to be able to locate those kind of things. So that to me is like where I think this is the real edge is what does San Antonio give up? How do they collapse the paint? What shots do they allow? Where is Nas best at? Attempts times percentage. Nas is like 46% on corner threes. He's killer there. I like Nas Reed plus 1,200 3-point leader.
Yeah, and I'll only add to that. I think that you and I both should be looking to play Nas threes game to game. The only problem with Nas threes series leader is he just doesn't get a ton of volume up necessarily. So I remember other series where like, oh, this is a Nas series. He's going to get some threes up, and he does, but he still only gets up like 5 a game. And if he makes 3 of those, it's just hard to get there. And if you think there are a number of second round series that you may think are short series, there are 3 currently that I think might be short series, and it's only 3. If you think that, you should be looking at long shot series leader bets because it's way easier to steal a market in 4 games than over 7 games where the math is going to bear out in your favor. So that's why I'm looking at some of the longer shots here where like Nas threes over 7 games is going to be tough to hit because somebody is just going to shoot a ton of threes, more volume than he'll get. But over 4 games, all right, he hit 5 or 6 in 1 game, and now you only need like 3 in another game, and you might be the leader after that. So if you like short series generally, that should tell you I should be looking for some interesting long shot variants, basically. I'm going to like Victor Wembanyama rebounds in the series. Not a shocking revelation, but Rudy's rebounding numbers are high when he gets offensive rebounds. He had 19 offensive rebounds in round 1. The Spurs are the number 1 defensive rebounding team. So I don't think Wemby's going to have a huge rebounding series. I'm not going to buy that market right now because he's minus something and I don't need that. But if there's a spot to invest, just giving that out now is something to watch. I'm not on the podcast before game 1. I have a game 1 bet, but that's the last thing I have. What else do you have in the series before I get to that? Anything?
The only other thing that I would probably look at is the only thing I'm interested in, and I don't know if I want to bet it now, and I'll probably lose the value on it. I'm a little interested back on assist leader. I'm a little interested on Julius Randle plus 900. Like he's the most likely guy to be the downhill threat for Minnesota, which means like he's a guy that will draw attention and he's a really good passer. He had 5 dimes in game 7 or game 6 versus Denver because Rudy Gobert had like 8. It was an outlier. I think that was really interesting, by the way, that Rudy Gobert had such like a positive offensive game without Ant. I thought that was notable. But yeah, I am a little interested in Julius Randle is the one guy on the Wolves where I'm like, oh, I kind of like this matchup for him.
Yeah.
So
I think for you that's a good bet, but meaning like you are in on Minnesota. I think you have to be in on Minnesota for this to be a good bet because if Randle has potential assists but Minnesota can't score anyway, then it's not going to work out. But I did look at this for him. I think in the first game season series he had like 12 assists, and I was like, ooh, Randle assist leader. And then it was like 4 or something like after that. So I think there could be games. I think Minnesota playing well will be games where Randle could have a big assist line. Like I could see an alt Randle assist for a game working out well. I think if you're on Spurs shorter series like me, then it's hard to be at Randle. But I think you're right. That's a good price and a good setup for your spot on the series.
Okay. Give me your game 1 best bets before we get out of here.
Yeah, just one. I like the Spurs in game 1. You like the Spurs in game 1. Your bet is Spurs game 1, Wolves series. That's a game 1 angle, obviously. I like Spurs at home. They're one of the best teams in the league at home. I like the Spurs in the first half. I've been playing first quarter, first half Spurs angles multiple times already. They're one of the best teams there. We often talk, Matt, about the shock to a system when you go from one round to the next round. I think Minnesota facing an actual defense again is going to be a shock to the system. I understand the Spurs are facing a much tougher offense than the Blazers. I understand this goes both ways, but Minnesota facing Jokic and Jamal and not Aaron Gordon and all the Denver guys and kind of getting to do whatever they want, if we're being honest, those last few games. Now, all of a sudden, all the Spurs pressure in that road environment, I think is a shock to the system play. And we like Spurs game one anyway. So I'll be looking at Spurs first half and probably playing a few escalators on one that I think could be an early blowout, even if it's not necessarily indicative of the rest of the series.
Okay. Are we good?
Yeah, that's everything from me.
Okay, cool. All right, it's going to do it for Wolves and Spurs. We'll be back with more on Celtics. Nope, not Celtics. I keep assuming they got past the Sixers. Sixers, Knicks.
You know what? More on Celtics sounds about right to me, because check out that starting lineup from last night. You'll be thinking about more on Celtics too.
Oh my God. Sixers Celtics. We'll have a series preview up in the feed shortly after.
Not Celtics. Sixers Knicks. Sixers Knicks.
Sixers Knicks. Sixers Knicks. The Sixers got past the Celtics. Sixers Knicks. We'll have the series preview up. You can check that out in the feed. We also have an episode for the Future Jays talking about their game one bets for Monday. And their thoughts on series prices and futures, all sorts of great stuff. Make sure to check that out. We'll have our usual pregame show at 5 o'clock Eastern before the Monday games. You can catch that out. Check out 5:15 Eastern at youtube.com/The Action Network. Follow Brandon Anderson in the Action Network app at Wheaton Brando to get all the tasty futures. We'll see you guys again next time. Till then, let's get buckets.